Hey everyone, how's everybody doing? I am super excited today. We have Aurelien joining the stream today. But before we continue in the chat, quickly let us know that the audio is working, that everything is good. And just hello, let us know where you are from. And if you're not familiar with Aurelien, it's like, come on. He's one of the co-founders, him, Pierre, and Jim, founded Strapi in 2015. Really exciting. So hello, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you for the invitation, Paul.
Yeah,
Very
no.
excited, very excited about what we're going to talk about today. So,
It's
so
going to
cool.
be super awesome. So we'll quickly go over the agenda planned for today. So we're going to talk about differences between Strapi V3 and V4. And some of the topics we're going to talk about is Strapi V3 challenges. We're going to then talk about Strapi V4 improvements, Strapi's future. We're going to talk about the migration. I'm going to share with you all of the resources that we have so far and more on the way. And then we're also going to open it to questions and answers. So you could ask questions in the chat and we'll definitely get to them. But we have so much stuff to cover. So I'm really, really excited. And before getting into Strapi challenges, what I want to do is actually ask Aurelien here, tell us a little bit about like the birth of Strapi. What was the motivation for the three of you starting it?
Oh, great question. Like long story short, like we were students, like three students doing some mission as freelancer and we were like mostly building WordPress websites. And like in 2014, 15, you have this shift in terms of like the shift of mobile application. Like people were wanting to have their own mobile application. It's the same moments like Apple, they launched the App Store, the iPhone, etc. So we have seen that as a freelancer, we've seen like people, they wanted to have website plus mobile application. And we were using WordPress, and WordPress at that time were not fitting at all the needs to have an API to share your content across different apps, a website and a mobile app. So we decided to create Strapi just to fit that need. That was as simple as that, like a backend API framework with an administration panel on top of it to manage content for both apps. And yeah, and that time, like we were like huge fan of open source. We were like using a lot of open source products such as WordPress, but also Symfony, Laravel, Rails, Sails, which is it was a famous, and it's still famous Node.js framework. And yeah, for us, like making Strapi open source was a no-brainer. So yeah, this is like the genesis, the origin of the project. And now we are super happy because there's a company that's supporting the open source project, almost 85 Strapiers now, part of the company. We're working 100% full time on the project, so it's quite amazing to see like the journey. But yeah, it's all started from a needs, so that's as simple as that. And then the rest is like just collaboration with the community, talking with users, and building and shipping as fast as possible.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's awesome. So let's get right into it. Let's start talking about limitations of Strapi V3 and some of the pain points that we reached.
Yeah, it's for PV3. So it's like we built it, like the three co-founders, we built Strapi V3, and we were not the best programmers and the best coders in the world. So yeah, at some point when we started to add more and more features, we started to see some degradation in terms of performance. For example, like the API, the responses started to be slow. We decided that to support multiple databases, but not only SQL, but also NoSQL, such as MongoDB. And it started to be a productivity issue for the engineers. Like managing two databases was kind of two type of databases was, I think, easy at the beginning because we were not having a lot of features and functionality provided by Strapi were very limited. And the more we added, the harder it was to stick with an SQL approach, but also matching like the best patterns for NoSQL, such as MongoDB. And it started to be very difficult for the team to support both and to develop features that will perfectly work on both databases, like SQL databases and NoSQL. So yeah, we had this internal productivity issue. We estimated that we were it was slowing down the development by 20% on average, which is quite a lot. And also, it was difficult for us to ensure that we were offering the exact same functionalities, like in terms of filtering, for example, or sorting on the API for both databases. So that was one of the challenges. Also, the upgrades were difficult because we were offering customization capabilities, but the way we were offering that customization capabilities was mostly about overriding files. So you were overriding administration like core files, and where we were making update on those core files, if you customized your app, you will have to update your customization. So the customization part was not scalable, and for those people who were using Strapi and making a lot of customization, the upgrades were really hard and difficult for them. There were also a lot of legacy code. So as I mentioned, we are not the best developers. So like a lot of legacy code. And also like when we started Strapi, we didn't want to build the Edge SMS. That wasn't the initial vision. Like the origin was to build an API framework with an administration panel. So we made some architecture choices and engineering design choices that were not matching the needs anymore. And it was hard to build like our vision of being LSCMS on top of this architecture. So that's it. And also there was some, because of that, also like the lack of design system, etc. Like there was some starting to see some inconsistency in the ecosystem with the plugins, etc. So that's, I think, like a very short summary of all the challenges we faced in V3. But yeah, so that's why we needed a new version.
The one thing I want to say, I think a lot of people don't, or maybe don't think about it, that how our companies born or products are started. It's usually is started by the founders, and it was like the three of you working on the code. And if you didn't get that initial, groundwork, like the project would not exist. And down the road, it's kind of amazing to see like the growth. And now we have more developers and the team is growing. That's so awesome. So can we talk about how much of the core code was rewritten and why?
How much? I don't know. I would love to have our CTO in that call, but how much? I don't know. But it was huge. Like we are talking about 8 months of work.
Wow.
Not all the engineers were on it, but we could talk about 3 to 4 engineers working full time on the rewrite and the version 4. But also it was including a redesign. Like the V4 came with a new design, with a new design system. And by the way, our design system, if you go on Figma, the community file is one of the most liked design system in the community files on Figma. So we are kind of proud of that. So yeah, for example, we completely rewrite the database layer. So we made that decision to only support SQL databases. Doesn't mean that in the future we could support, I think there's a way, there are still open doors in the code to support other databases. But right now we just rewrite the database layer to better handle the connection with the database. Also, we want to create a query engine. So the query engine is like a universal query language that we use in the plugins, in the core files to make queries, SQL queries, like that I convert that into SQL queries for the databases. So it brought like new capacities such as filtering, better centering, better sorting, and the way we query the database is also better handled. Such as like your primary keys, foreign keys, these kind of things are better handled. It doesn't mean everything is perfect yet, but I think like the foundations are here for the future. We also brought a new design system. So like when you look at the consistency in our ecosystem in terms of design, of guidelines, the UI is consistent, which is quite difficult. Like for us, it was I remember like we analyzed so many different ecosystems like Drupal, WordPress, even like more recent software such as Webflow. How do they build that ecosystem with plugins and extensions? And the UX, the UI still feel the same. Like, like you cannot know if this plugin has been developed by someone else than the core team. So it was quite difficult, but I think we can be proud and satisfied of the current results. And also we introduced 2 new API, like the one I was mentioning to provide customization, such as the plugin API and the core API. So those APIs, they help you to develop plugins in a maintainable way. So when you make upgrade of your software, your plugin is connected through the API, not overriding a core file. So it means when you update and you upgrade the software, your Strapi project, normally, like if it's not a major upgrade, your plugin should still work. And that was one of the expected results by introducing those APIs. So we broke the entire plugin ecosystem because of that choice. And also it forced us to restrict the customization capabilities. So I know a lot of users were disappointed, but it was the only way for us to recreate that consistency, to make sure that we are now building on solid foundation, to make the ecosystem scalable for the years to come. And also we change and upgrade the REST and GraphQL APIs. So we updated the format, we updated the way the query were done, so to bring more performance, and also we were like stopping having bad patterned behavior, like for example, always fetching all the relations. I know it was really liked by all the users, but also this was the major point of performance issues. So yeah, that's what we did with before, and it was a lot of work.
Yeah,
it's still not finished yet.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean it's crazy to think about, because like when you're making all these changes, considerations, you're not thinking about, oh, Strapi version 4, you're thinking version 5, 6, 7, and down the roads, and making sure that you're creating the appropriate foundation to make sure that we're able to support all those new features with this, easy, manageable like system that we have. No, I think that's like really awesome. And I think that's one of the things that's really hard sometimes to catch, is that when you start, your project first, you get as far as you can, and then you realize, hey, if we want to take that next step, we need to implement these new features. And early on, those are some of the changes that we have to do. And I've been like really enjoying the new changes that we have made. And with that being said, like what was the most challenging part, even like from product perspective, when doing the rewrite?
From a product, we talk as a CPO, but it was mostly, I think, the plugin and core APIs, because we were like, it was a very blurry area for us. Like it was the first time we were doing that. There's not a lot of ecosystem that scale really well, especially in terms of design system. For example, WordPress is a huge ecosystem, but when you look at the UX and the UI, like it's not scaling at all. And the design system were like became, I think, very popular 5 years ago. And applying a design system at that scale is not something a lot of people have done before. And so we were lacking resources, and we were like just experimenting, exploring, and this is still the case today. So we're still making a lot of change and updates on the design system. Some components, they don't work, so we need to update them. So I think that part, because we were lacking resources, and the confidence was not as high as it could have been. So that was one thing. And I think from the engineering part, it was mostly about the REST and GraphQL API. I know we made a lot of changes, and those changes, they like the original idea was to update the format, but also to bring an SDK to make like the interaction with the API, to consume the API in a better way, in an easier way. And today we're just providing this new API, and also we try to anticipate new upcoming features, like features which are coming this year, like draft and publish V2. We're also providing review workflows, like publication workflows, and they will have history versioning. All those features, we knew that they will require metadata and to have better granularity in terms of attributes. So that's why we thought and designed the API this way. But we know we were a bit forward in terms of needs and like how the people and the user reacted. We were like a bit disappointed, but also we were like prepared, because those changes has been made, and you mentioned, Paul, to anticipate, and we don't want to break the API next year again. So
Right.
I think it was better to do huge breaking change once, and we hope that we doesn't mean we won't break the API again, but at least the breaking change will be way smaller than they were before. So that was our approach, but I think we lack in a way to, we didn't communicate well about those changes, and we could have even the RFC, the process was new, and we could have done a lot of things way better regarding the API format, for example.
Yeah, I mean, I can't even imagine from your standpoint of you kind of knowing where we want to go and making that decision. It's like, do we make the big change now, knowing the friction that it's going to cause, and get everything done now rather than having to do it later down the road, where the impact of that change would be even bigger. And so I think, you know, it's that's just the tough choices sometimes you're faced with. And I think doing the changes now is still the right decision, because like you said, it sets the foundation for everything else that we're going to be doing in Strapi and all the new features that we have planned. And I did want to dive a little bit deeper in terms of like the GraphQL related changes that we were made and why.
Yeah, the GraphQL related changes. This one is not easy, because also like the REST API, the previous on v3, the REST API and the GraphQL API, they were not matching. Like, and we wanted to avoid that on v4 to make sure like the API were closer in terms of filtering or sorting, this kind of thing. So that's why we have the response format is it's not exactly the same, but it's closer than it was. And also the entire population logic in v3, so it's going to be a bit technical, but was mostly done by Strapi itself, and it was slow, it was single threaded, so it wasn't optimized at all. And on v4, like the population logic, for example, is mostly done at the database level, not at the Strapi. So it brings better performance. It makes the join easier and much more faster. But yeah, that's what we mostly did on GraphQL to optimize the performance. And that's why I mentioned database layer and the query engine is we separate those on v4, and on v3 it was one single thing. So it was like the kind of code spaghetti. And now it's it's better. Like I think for maintenance and for performance is better. And if we want to work again on performance, and I'm pretty sure we will do in the months to come, it will be even easier for us, and also to accept community contribution on those areas.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I think that's something a lot of people did not understand, maybe know, like the way we were handling all that in the JavaScript, which did slow our application down. And so this improvement made a huge difference in performance jump, which is awesome. And so like, let's talk more about the need for granularity in the API response, and what new features are going to be supported by that, or what do you have planned?
Yeah, I remember those all those meetings and hours of talking about those choices. But yeah, the API response format, we designed it to support or try our best to support without a lot of breaking chains, a lot of upcoming features. So for example, today in Strapi, we have this draft and publish feature, but you cannot have two versions of the same entry in parallel. So it's just a status. Your entry, your article, for example, is published or is still a draft. And with draft and publish v2, you will have two versions, like one draft and one published, and you could work on your draft while you still have your published version live and in production. So it's about versioning and parallelizing entries. So this feature, the new API will support it easily. Same for the publication and review workflows. So it's about having status like, oh, okay, my draft is ready to be reviewed. My draft is ready to be translated in 5 languages and 5 locals and ready to be published. And now I can publish it. So these features, publication and review workflows, will be, I think, we think, but it's hard to anticipate everything. But we think like the new API will support it quite easily. The same, we have to support internationalization. So it's about supporting. Sometimes we have some use case with people that have 20 locals, 25 locals, different languages. which is a lot. And we also need to support another feature called history. So you made changes and you want to roll back to a previous version. So we need to keep in database and store all the changes of your content. And it means for the same entries, you can have 10 old versions, but those 10 old versions then can be in draft or published, but they can be also in 5 or 10 different languages. And it's a matrix, like it's a three-dimensional matrix. And that's why we wanted more granularity. To support all those features, we're thinking about A/B testing, about comments, and all those things, they need to be supported by the API. And for example, at Strapi, we are going to create a dedicated team. We call that team the content engine. And their job is to just build the engine of the CMS, like how all those features together, because they are all linked together. Like when you make a change somewhere, it has an impact somewhere else. So we have a team that will be dedicated to just build the engine. And that's the core of the CMS. So yeah, we need a strong API and we need more granularity to manage and handle those use cases. And today they are not supported because the features are not available,
right?
But they will be. And we created Strapi before to set up the foundations, and we'll enjoy them.
My next question was going to be, how did we decide the structure of the new API response? Because it seems to be our most polarizing change. But now, like seeing this and having you mention some of this upcoming stuff, like it makes sense. We need to have an API response that supports all those new front end features. And I know like one of the unfortunate complaints been it requires people to refactor the front end because the response structure is different. And so I think part of what you mentioned above, like definitely shed some light on why we did it. But can you chat a little bit more about this?
The decision process was like, we explore like, okay, we need to support that and try to anticipate and to forecast how the API response should look like. We also like wrote this RFC to share our intent and what we wanted to do. But like I think it's one of the mistakes we made is that the RFC process was new, and we didn't communicate a lot about the RFC. So, like I think a very tiny portion of the community saw the RFC, and we didn't receive a lot of comments. And I think we should have be more careful about like the very low amount of comments on the RFC for such an important change in Strapi. So I think on that part we could have done a better job by asking more and to maybe share more about the new API response. I think it was one of our mistakes here, but the process was open and we wanted to have it as open as possible. But I think a lot of people were surprised when they tested Strapi before about this new format. But the RFC was open for several months before we release it. So that's why I think as a team, we were a bit disappointed because we were not planning to have such a negative feedback from the community.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that we are still humans and we make mistakes. And I think even if we know and we all agree, and I think we can all agree that we need a new API format to support those features, it doesn't mean the current format is the right solution and the right answer to our problems. And we have received so many feedback that now we have better knowledge about, okay, this design choice, we could support the same features, but with another design choices that could help us to support, Relay, for example. We know that with Relay, the new API response is a nightmare to manage, and it's not compatible at all sometimes. So I really hope like on Strapi v5, we will make the process even more open. Communicate more about the RFC. Also, the beta phase was very short. Like it was just a month, and for this kind of changes, we should have at least 3 months of beta. But there were also some internal challenges. The team was tired to not have the before release. And some things were just
I think there's no excuse. We definitely have to communicate better. And what I want to say is that I think we already taken the steps, because the RFC process with like custom fields, I think the involvement of both sides, the team and our community, has been great. And so I think we definitely made a change, learned from our lesson. But I think it's important. I mean, and the fact that, we're, like you said, we're human beings, we make mistakes, and I can't even imagine the deadline you had to release Strapi 4 and doing all that stuff. It must have been like insane. And sometimes things happen, but man, just admitting it, like, and sharing it, and like, thank you for that. I think it's very important, and it's good for everybody to see that. It's very easy when you work for a company. A lot of people, kind of, not nobody here in the community, but it's very easy to kind of forget that we are human beings just like you. We have our families, we have our day-to-day lives. We're doing like the best that we can. And like I said this before, no one shows up to Strapi being like, what can we mess up today? It's nobody. Nobody does that. People show up with the dream, the belief. And I mean, like, just the fact that when you started the project, it was just three of you, and you had this vision, you knew what you wanted to do, and it got this far. It's phenomenal. It's phenomenal. From like three people to, like, I lost count of how many people we have at Strapi now. So it's amazing. So yeah. So now let's jump in and talk about the Strapi V4 improvements, because let's talk about like all the cool stuff that we now have. And I know let's talk about the new changes and all the improvements that we made.
Yeah, and maybe one last thing on the V3, like the API format, is that the original plan was to also provide an SDK.
Oh yes,
and
I was going to
that's
ask you
the missing part. The SDK is not there, and we plan to
Yeah.
work on it. We like to work on it in Q4, end of Q4 this year. But yeah, with the SDK, everything should be way easier. Like retrieving the data, fetching the data, making queries will be way easier for any front end, React, Vue, and yeah, it's the missing piece also of the puzzle. So that's an important thing, and it's coming. And I think that's also why, when you just look at the raw responses and the API, yeah, the format is not easy, but the API will make things easier.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I was definitely going to ask you about the SDK, but I'm glad you brought it up, because I think that, like you said, is going to make so many things so much easier. So let's go ahead and talk about all the new improved changes that we made.
Yeah, let's look. I think we just fixed a lot of issues. Like like Strapi V4, like the Strapi V4 lifetime was 3 years already. So we learned a lot during those 3 years with V3, and we didn't want it to reproduce some mistake. Like one of them, that migrating from V3 version to another V3 version was difficult. And it's easier, and we can see with the telemetry that people, like the users, for them it's easier to migrate from a minor version of V4 than it was. And also we learn a lot with providing more migration guides now. We're making improvement, but again, we learn it the hard way with the migration guides. Also, we completely split the admin API and the content API, so now it's the split is clearer, and it makes it's easier for us, and for everyone to provide more capabilities to the content API. Before, like the split was not well done in the backend, and I hope at some point even the admin API will be more open, means that you could build your own admin on top of Strapi. That would be amazing. Also, the UI, like the UI has been completely revamped, and also we just brought a dark mode very recently, and the design system, like everything is consistent. So I think it's very rare, like in the ecosystem, that a software is at 100% using the components of the design system. So there's no custom components in Strapi. Everything is in the design system. So it means if you want to build plugins, you can reuse the same component as we use in the core team to build new features. So it brings a lot of power for the contributors in the community to develop their own features. And also it makes the development faster, it creates more consistency. And once we will also bring the themes, and you would like to change and have your own colors, it will make things way easier for everyone. We introduced the core APIs as well, the plugin APIs. So it's mostly engineering choices and design choices, but it makes everything simpler, faster, and more maintainable. That was one of the the thing we wanted to have more contributions from the community, and we definitely have more contribution than before. And also the releases are easier for us. So I think we have done like I didn't count, but the number of releases on V4 is way higher than the ones we were doing on V3.
Yeah.
Also, if we talk about I think the relations, the populations, the performance is better, but you need more manual work right now. Like you need to choose, okay, I want to populate that relation. And before it was automatic, which was great in terms of, I think, first user experience, because everything is in the response. That's amazing. But when you have a very big and gigantic website that we are like users, they are managing millions of data with Strapi. It's huge, so they cannot automatically populate every relations with those millions entries. So that's why we did that API design change to not populate everything, but that's why Strapi is more performant, and also you can go deeper in the relation, in the filtering of the relation now. So that's the benefits of the query engine, for example, and to have a new database layer. And also, I think the GraphQL support and REST API support is better. GraphQL is still a plugin, but like it was a kind of on the side plugin on V3, and now it's more integrating into the core. Yeah, we are paying more attention on GraphQL right now. Even if it doesn't represent a lot of users, like only 15% of the Strapi users are using GraphQL, and it's not increasing, it's mostly decreasing. So GraphQL is still a small portion of users.
Yeah.
And most people use the REST API.
Yeah, I was actually going to mention that the last project I did, because of the populate feature, I actually realized some of the things that I was using like GraphQL for, like I could replace by using populate and only getting the data that I need. So for my use case, like using GraphQL for me in that particular project, it makes sense. I'm sure like there's a particular use case for each, but I think, you know, the power of GraphQL, depending on what use case you're using it, it's not as like, it's not the same like it was like 4 or 5 years ago versus REST. Like REST is definitely catching up. And another benefit, I know a lot of people I talk to, especially when I tell them I use GraphQL, the common question I get, well, how do you handle caching? And in my personal experience, I've never had to do that on a big level, but you know, talking to a lot of engineers and other developers, talking to Derek, you know, using REST and using like Redis caching just makes things so much easier. And so there are other reasons to kind of reconsider or think about your requirements from the building project. Is GraphQL really the right way to go? If it is, do it. Or is it REST? I think that's very important. And so, yeah, I'm really excited for all the changes we made in V4. I'm excited for a lot of the stuff that we're doing. So speaking of that, let's talk about Strapi's future and the cool things that are coming. I think we have a lot of cool stuff going on. So let's talk about like the goals for Strapi being, you know, pure headless CMS, and what does that mean?
Yeah, I think that's one of the most frequent questions, is that what's the vision and where are we going as a product? So when we say pure headless CMS, is that right now, like, and I really like there was a panel with headless CMS developer advocates recently, and I know Daniel participated and attended to this panel. And one of the questions is that how you differentiate content versus data. What's data? What's content? And we have our own vision about, like content can not be like, at the end, the way you retrieve content is the same way as you retrieve data, but it's like comparing cars and trucks. We all use the same roads, but cars are not trucks and trucks are not cars. And that's the same for content and data. Like content is mostly done to be read by humans, and data is read by computers and software. So it's like this emotional way of, you can spread a message with content. With data, it's pure data. It's not the same. So with that in mind, like we want to focus on helping contributors, like content editors, to write better content. And we still want to be like very developer friendly. We want to be open to let people and developer contribute and to customize Strapi, because we know that all the time each project is unique, each website is unique. You need sometimes a new endpoint, you need to update an endpoint, you need to add a new logo, you need to change the color. So customization capabilities, 100% we will double down on that again. And the most important thing is that the new features that are coming, they will be very content management oriented. So we will bring like new features, as I mentioned, draft and publish, to have two versions in parallel of the same entry. We will work on bringing the custom fields. So it's about customization, but it's about bringing maps, color picker, or having fields connected to a Shopify shop, for example. These kind of things. We'll also work on comments, this kind of task, but those things are very content management oriented, because Strapi is headless CMS and will be a headless CMS. So we are not going to focus on data, but mostly on how you can write, collaborate better as a team, not alone on content, and share that content. So also why maybe we'll talk about later, we are working on Strapi Cloud. But
yes,
yeah,
yes,
that's where we are going. It's mostly about helping people and our users to build and write better content.
Yeah. And so what would you say the best use cases for Strapi would be if someone was starting to build a product?
Today, I think it's mostly if you want to run a blog, or if you want to build like a corporate website, Strapi is definitely a great fit. One thing I'm very surprised with is that we still have 20% of the project built on with Strapi or mobile apps.
Wow.
So 20%, it's huge. Like it's
Insane. It's cool though.
Mobile apps, yeah. And we are not providing any, Swift SDK or Android SDK, or even I know the API token was some issue to refresh the token. So the experience could be better for those folks. So yeah, that's it's interesting. So some people, I think they are building mobile application with Strapi. So mobile app seems to be a great use case, but I think mostly websites. Strapi is great to build websites right now. And if you need like to build a very gigantic website, this is the direction, and this is where we are going. Like we will improve the way we manage the translation, for example. Like everything, when we build things, we always try to stretch our solution to make sure that it can scale. You can be you can have like 20, 25 locals. You can have more drafts. You can have tons of versions of the same entries. That's our way of thinking, is that we set up the foundation to build on top of it. And so yeah, I will keep it simple, mostly editorial websites right now.
Nice, nice. And let's talk about the most exciting stuff, including the future features that are coming, and talk about the Strapi Cloud. So what do we have coming up?
Yeah, so I mentioned, again, Draft and Publish V2 is coming, API token V2 as well. So with the new API token, you will be able to manage the permissions from the content API. So right now, when you're generating token, it's mostly you get read or write access. And now you will be able to choose each content type. Okay, I just want to give the read or edit or delete access to that content type with that API token that I'm generating right now. So that's the cool thing with the new API token. We're also working on schema and data migration. So we will start with data and then schema migration, but we know that it's hard if you have multiple environments, development, staging, production, for example. It's hard to migrate the data and the schema. So these things are coming also for the end of this year. What are the other cool things that are coming? Custom fields.
That'd be awesome.
Finally, we announced them at the last Strapi Off. But yeah, as I mentioned, like we have a lot of people requesting like e-commerce, for example, custom fields. So you would like to connect their Magento or their PrestaShop or Shopify website, like in managing the product descriptions within the headless CMS, and still having the e-commerce things on Shopify, for example. And for that, you need a custom field to be able to link one product description to the right item in your Shopify collection. So that's the very exciting part. And custom fields, we're talking about map color pickers, as I mentioned previously. So that's yeah, the big things that are coming. Maybe I'm missing one thing. Let me check my notes, but that's mostly it.
Strapi Cloud. It's
Yeah.
we gotta talk about the Strapi Cloud. I think it's awesome because one of the challenging things, especially for like some of the developers that are working on Strapi projects, they're not DevOps like specialists, and so one of the like issues of just maybe not having the experiences doing the deployment process and having the scalability and stuff. And I think that's the aim of Strapi Cloud, to make that easier for everybody. So can you talk to us about Strapi Cloud, where we are and what's the plan?
Yeah, you say it all. That's the motto of Strapi Cloud. Make development very simple, like dead easy for for any Strapi project. So yeah, that's the vision behind Strapi Cloud. And yeah, we launched the alpha version. It's a private alpha version, but we already have 20 users using Strapi Cloud right now, and some of them already deployed their apps in production. So we're super excited. The beta is coming soon. We plan to have it at the end of September, beginning of October, and we still plan to be GA and public in January next year. Nice. So we don't know exactly when in January. Maybe it will be early February. We don't know exactly when, but that's still the plan. And yeah, Strapi Cloud, the goal is that you can click next, and it's deployed. We want to stick to the developer workflow, so you will still install your project locally, develop your project locally, your content structure. You will be able to install plugins on your machine, and then with a simple click or a single command in the CLI, Strapi deploy, and bam, it's live without managing anything. So Strapi Cloud will provide everything you need. So CDN, a database, a server, Node.js server, and yeah, that's will be your new tool to develop any kind of product. Could be proof of concept, but also production or staging apps. We will provide all the features that will be required and asked and requested by the users. But that's the goal with Strapi Cloud. Yeah.
Nice. So now I just want to like talk a little bit about the migration process. I know there's been a lot of questions, and we see all the awesome benefits of Strapi 4. And I hope after watching this and seeing all the changes that we made from going from V3 to V4, that because of big changes, the migration process is not as simple as it really depends. So let me just back up a little bit, set the expectation. If you have like a simple Strapi project where you don't have any customizations, the process is actually like fairly straightforward. And to help us, I'll share some of the resources that we did that help to shine some light on the process. But the more customized your app, the more custom code you wrote, created custom controllers, custom GraphQL resolvers, that does add to the difficulty of the migration. But we had already, we talked to folks that migrated their applications. And so we're getting the feedback and we're working on some resource. But before getting too far, let me go ahead and share some of the resources that you have available right now, and maybe you weren't aware of yet. So we have our Strapi docs, we have CodeMod, migration DB scripts that help you migrate your databases. We just had an amazing migration stream which outlines the big picture process of what and how you would approach it. And we have a migration post, and we also have Discord. If you're not a member of Discord, join Discord to answer some questions. And I just want to show you like some of these resources here. So and I'll throw the links in the chat as well for the migration docs. But as you could see, we have our code migration guide, our data migration guide, and plugin migration guide. And sometimes when like looking into the documentation, maybe if you've never went through the migration process, it might be a little bit confusing. That's why we released the Strapi migration overview stream, not only because we want to show you a sample migration process. This is actually a great stream if you missed it. If you want to read about it, we have a article that we wrote, which is pretty awesome, that covers the process, outlines the steps that you should take to go through. And what I like about both the migration stream and the post is that it gives more context to the documentation. So now you're able to kind of know exactly where to look, where to make the changes. And the cool part, once you get past that initial part of the migration, when it comes to customizing stuff after the running code mods, it's the same process as you would customize controller services and resolvers in V4. So you could, at that point, use our V4 documentation. But this is cool resource. And then we have our code mods. If we'll put all these links in the chat for you. And thank you, Derek, so much. I just want to quickly do a shout out to Derek. He's answering all the questions and not leaving any questions for us. So we really appreciate you, man. Thank you. And thank you for sharing the links. And so we have code mods. That's a great way for you and a tool to use to make the migration process easier. The best part about it, it will migrate your schemas for you. So if you have like 100 or 200 content types, you definitely don't want to do that manually. Then we also have our repo for our migration scripts. They're still in alpha beta phase. But like I said, there's a lot of our customers have been using it and succeeding. There are some edge cases that happened, but it's resources for you here. And the best part, make sure you go ahead and join the Strapi Discord community if you haven't, because it's a great place not only to chat with the community, but it's a great place to help others with the questions that may have, or have someone answer your questions for you. So I know we're like really close on time, but let's do like a quick Q&A, even though I would say Derek has answered, he's been answering questions like nobody's business. So we appreciate you, Derek. It's phenomenal. Let's see what let's do like quick, few questions, because I want to be mindful of Aurelian's time, but let's see if we'll be able to answer a question before Derek will. Yeah, there's interesting, let's see here. We should share a link on Discord. We'll throw that in there in a second. And there's a question, maybe out of context, but just want to know, will Strapi V4 pass the VAPT? I'm personally not sure what that stands
I'm
for.
not sure. If you could like
give some context.
Yeah.
No, Derek, don't pause. No, please, we need you.
It sounds like a certification.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Vulnerability, I see Derek answered the question before. So vulnerability assessment and penetration testing.
Great question. I know like we're going to work on like more security aspects soon, mostly because of Strapi Cloud. We would like to pass like the SOC 2 certification next year. So that's one thing. And I think with those certification, we'll have to maybe work on vulnerability assessment and penetration testing for sure. So there's still a room for improvement to work on those things. And I know we still have some part of the software where there is no test yet. So yeah, maybe it's not really accurate and relevant with the question, but regarding the security topic, sure, yeah, it's in our mind, not for this year, mostly for next year.
Yeah, and Derek's like his comment, he said, we haven't run it, but as members of our security team, we take it pretty seriously. And it's true, like internally I hear a lot of conversations, and security is like super huge and important to us. And you know, he shared, if you have security concerns, you could definitely reach out to security@strapi.io.
Yeah.
And man, we're past our time. I do want to be mindful of your schedule, Aurelien. Thank you so much for being here. I think you answered so many great questions, and I hope if you jumped on the stream late, definitely rewatch it. I think it puts a lot of context for the changes we made. You know, we talked about, you know, for certain things not communicating enough. We heard you. We heard the community. We're making the changes that we need. And with that being said, like, thank you so much for being here. Thank you everyone who joined the stream. If you jumped on late, definitely rewatch it again. It'll be here on YouTube. But with that being said, man, thanks so much, and everyone have a great day. Thank you, Aurelien, and we'll see everybody later. And thank you, Derek, and everybody else who helped with questions in the comments. Take care.
Thank you. Ciao, everyone.